It'll never happen, but hypothetically, what would a conventional USA debt default look like and its impacts on society instead of doing it via inflation?
Well, that's a very interesting question because one of the things that I advocate is an actual default on US debt. My argument being that if a building is going to collapse, it's better to have a controlled demolition as opposed to let it fall randomly and unpredictably. However, if the US government defaulted on all of its bills and bonds and contingent obligations and so forth, at that point, what would happen? All the entire financial structure of the country would collapse. Insurance companies, corporations, the currency would collapse. It'd be worth nothing because debt would be worth nothing at that point because the dollar would be worth nothing because the dollar is nothing but debt. So it would be real chaos. I've got to admit, real chaos. And chaos never ends well because there's always somebody that comes in to fill the power vacuum. So, but they painted themselves into a corner at this point. They can't default, so they're going to have to keep printing. But if they keep printing to keep it going, they're going to have to keep. I don't see any way out of this thing. We're headed for a real catastrophe. And the runaway inflation catastrophe may turn out to be worse than a deflationary catastrophe. But look at the good news. I always like to, look at the other side of the coin. And the good news is that most of the real wealth, the farms, what remain of factories, the technology, the knowledge in people's heads, that's all going to be there. So it'll sort out.
I think that if there was a default, because so much U.S. debt is owned internationally and U.S. dollars are held as in reserves in central banks around the world, it wouldn't just be confined to the U.S. in terms of the financial catastrophe. It would be global.
Oh, global, totally global. And of course, it's not just the central banks and rich people who keep their money in dollars. It's the little people in these countries that have worthless blocked currencies that try to hoard some dollars. They're going to be screwed too. Jesus, what a titanic disaster. We'll see which titanic disaster it's going to be. It's going to be a titanic disaster or a gigantic disaster. I'm not sure yet.